We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 83a. The Gemara here continues a statement of Rav Leso Lemasnisin Mekame Brisa. We can say that we don't hold like the Mishnah because of the following Brisa. Rashi over here says Leso Lemasnisin Dekatani LeRabbi Yossi Androgenes Machilas Ishto B'Truma. Rabbi Yossi says in the Mishnah that an androgynous allows his wife. Let's say the androgynous is a Kohen, his wife can eat truma, meaning to say it's considered that she's married to a man. It's a good marriage, and therefore she has truma, and that is not what the Brisa says. Mekame Brisa dekatani l'Rabbi Yossi sveikahu, because in the Brisa we're going to see, according to Rabbi Yossi, not like the Mishnah, we're going to see an androgynous is considered a suffix. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yossi says androgynous birya b'fnei atzmahu. An androgynous is considered a unique creation. The Chachamim could not decide whether the androgynous is considered a zachar or a nekeva. And so the Gemara says, Adrab, on the contrary, lesser lebraisa, mekami masnisin. Why don't we say we don't hold like the Brisa? Because of the Mishnah. Usually a Mishnah is considered more authoritative than a Brisa. And the Gemara says, no, mi the shavke Rabbi Yossi lebarzuge. From the fact that in the Brisa, Rabbi Yossi leaves his partner. In the Mishnah, it wasn't only Rabbi Yossi, it was Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. In the Brisa, it's just Rabbi Yossi. Shma mino haderbe. You see that Rabbi Yossi retracted. Rabbi Yossi changed his mind. Rashi over here says, mi the shavke Rabbi Yossi le Rabbi Shimon ben zuge. The Iri bahadav masnisin. Rabbi Yossi is together with Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. The Iri b'Brisa lechudan. The Brisa is by himself. Shma mino haderbe. You see that Rabbi Yossi retracted. V'lav tanoi, it's not a machlokas tanoim, the tema sami tana de brisa, mekami tana de masisin, that you'll say forget the brisa because we have a Mishnah. Di tanoi, because if it's a machlokas tanoim in terms of what was said, tarvayu have it tani luhunami bebrisa. Then you would have both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon in the brisa also. Umapech le Rabbi Shimon kede ipchol Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon would also be the opposite of what he said in each place. So in other words, you see, it's not that the brisa is just a different version of what Rabbi Yossi said. It's actually that Rabbi Yossi retracted, and therefore, again, we do not hold like the Mishnah. We follow the Rabbi Yossi of the brisa. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says lesa lebrisa mekami masnis, and the opposite. We ignore the brisa because of the Mishnah, and we assume that the Mishnah is what we should follow. And the Gemara says Adrab, on the contrary, lesa lemasnis and mekami brisa. Shmuel should say that we should forget about the Mishnah because of the brisa. Do hashamina leila Shmuel, because we know that Shmuel holds the chayesh lichidah. Shmuel happens to hold that we follow even the individual opinion. Rashi over here says the chayesh lichidah do Amar Shmuel b'hacholetz, because Shmuel says in hacholetz halacha Rabbi Yehuda b'shomeres yavam shekidesh achav. The halach happens to be like Rabbi Yehuda in the case of a shomeres yavam, where his brother was mekadesh her sister. So in other words, you see that he follows individual or minority opinions, and therefore, on the contrary, we should say that he doesn't hold to the Mishnah, and instead that he does hold like the Brisa, where it's only listed in the opinion in the name of one person. And so the Gemara says, Hani mili kilo misakra masnisin. When Shmuel says we follow even the minority opinion, that's if you're not uprooting a Mishnah. Avolki misakra masnisin. But if you're going to be uprooting a Mishnah, lo. So then he wouldn't lo chayish. So then he wouldn't be concerned. Meaning to say, he would not follow the Brisa. He would follow the Mishnah. And the Gemara continues, Amri Bei Rav, they said in the yeshiva of Rav, Mishmeid Rav, in the name of Rav, halacha, Rabbi Yossi, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, ba'androgenes uva harkava, by the case of androgenes, and by the case of harkava, which will be explained momentarily. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, b'kushi uva kiddush. Also, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi by the case of kushi, and by the case of kiddush. Also, these cases will be explained. Rashi over here says, halacha Rabbi Yossi the masnisin, that means to say, the halacha is like the Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, that the androgynous is considered a man. V'amri Bei Rav, hainu Rav Huna, and Amri Bei Rav refers to Rav Huna. Rav Huna is the one quoting Rav over here. Kidul Kaman, like we'll say later on. Upoligad the Amrin La'el, Aliba de Rav, lesa l'masnisin. And this would argue on what we said before, according to Rav, that we don't hold like the Mishnah. Here we're saying, no, we do hold like the Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. Uvarkava l'kaman mefarish. We're going to explain what harkava is later on. V'chein kushi v'kiddush, we'll also explain kushi and kiddush. Uvekulu Iri Rabbi Shimon b'hadei. In all of these cases, we're going to bring it down. Rabbi Shimon is going to be together with Rabbi Yossi. Hilkach mistabra that Rabbi Yossi b'masnisin kai. That's why it seems logical that when he says here the halach is like Rabbi Yossi, he means the Rabbi Yossi of the Mishnah, not of the Brisa. The Iri Rabbi Shimon b'hadei, because it's in the Mishnah where Rabbi Shimon is the partner of Rabbi Yossi. So again, in all of these cases, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara continues, androgynous hadiyamar. Androgynous, that's the case we've been talking about all along. Again, that the androgynous is considered to be a male, and therefore the wife is allowed to have truma. Harkava, what's the case of harkava? The Tanan, as we learned in the following Mishnah. And this is a Mishnah in Shvius. The Mishnah says, "Ein notin vein mavrichin vein markivin erev Shvius Pachos mishloshim yom lefnei Rosh Hashanah. Let's say it's the year before the Shemitah year, so you're not allowed to plant. You're not allowed to be mavrichin. Mavrichin means to say that you take a branch and you plant it into the ground. Markivin means you graft. That means you take a branch and you graft it onto another tree. You're not allowed to do any of that if you're within 30 days before Rosh Hashanah of a Shemitah year, because we're afraid it's going to take root in the Shemitah year. And if you did this kind of planting, you have to uproot it. If you did it within 30 days before the Shemitah year. Rabbi Yehuda says, anytime you do a kind of grafting, if that doesn't take root within 3 days, it won't take root. Meaning Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's just 3 days. It's not 30 days. It takes 3 days for it to take root, and therefore, as long as it's more than 3 days before Rosh Hashanah, you should still be okay. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say, and this is the Rabbi Yossi that we're saying the halacha is like. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say, Shteis Shabbos. It takes 2 weeks for the plant to take root. The Omer of Nachman, Omer Rabba bar Avua. Now on this Mishnah, Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabba bar Avua, L'divrei ha'omer shloshim tzarich shloshim ushloshim. According to the one who says 30, it's not 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, it's 30 days before 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, because really 30 days before Rosh Hashanah is already considered like the next year. So therefore it's really 30 and 30. And L'divrei omer shlosha tzarich shlosha ushloshim. According to the one who says 3 days, it's really 3 days plus 30. Again, it's 3 days before 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. And L'divrei omer shtei Shabbos, according to the one who says 2 weeks, tzarich shtei Shabbos ushloshim, it's 2 weeks and 30 days. Again, 2 weeks before 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara continues with Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Bekushi v'kiddush. By Kushi and Kiddush also, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. What is Kushi? D'tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, and this is a Mishnah in Nida, the Mishnah says, Kama yehei kishuya, how long before she actually gives birth do we say that if she has this protracted labor, so then we say she doesn't have Tumah Ziva if she's bleeding? Rabbi Meir Omer, o arboim o chamishim yom. Rabbi Meir says, or 40 or 50 days. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, daya chadash. Rabbi Yehuda says it's enough if it's within the 9th month. Rashi will explain this. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Omer, ein kisha yoser mishtei Shabbos. It's not considered protracted labor more than 2 weeks away from the time of the birth. And Rashi over here explains, Kami he kishuya de kaimelan benida do raisa mekasha besochir aleph shebei nida lenida. Let's say you have a situation where it's the time not of her period. It's the 11 days between nida and nida, meaning those 11 days which are considered not days where she normally has her period. So normally in those days she would become what's called a zava if she sees blood for 3 days straight. But let's say she's also pregnant and now she's having labor pains and she sees blood. V'ro edam gimel yamim ritzufim machmas tsar valda. So she sees blood for 3 days straight because of the pain of the labor. Eina bali de ziva. So then we say that blood is not going to be considered blood of ziva. Lios tzricha svira zayin nikim ki yoledis bezov, and she's not going to require to count 7 clean days like a situation of yoledis bezov where she gives birth again with the ziva. Eliyamei tumas leida ki yoledis greda. So she's only going to count the days of tumas leida, the normal tum of childbirth, like a regular situation of a yoledis. The Tanyas we learned in a brayso ki yozav zov dama machmas atzma v'lo machmas vlad. The blood has to come because of herself, not because of the child. So the whole question of the Mishnah is, how long before she gives birth do we say that it's because of the baby that she's having this blood? So the first opinion of Rabbi Meir was, even if it's 40 or 50 days before she actually gives birth, that could be considered that the blood is happening because of the labor pains and it's not ziva. And then we had the opinion, that it's just the month, the 9th month. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Daya chadasha means chodesh teshi. You take the 9th month shehi oledis bo when she's giving birth. Upa'amim shein yoser miyom o yomayim. Sometimes that means it's not going to be more than 1 or 2 days. Kegon sheyalda bebeis bechodesh. For example, let's say she gives birth on the 2nd of the month, talking about the 9th month, and she gives birth on the 2nd of that month. So ein avlad mitar eladam sharasa merosh chodesh veilach. So then we're only going to say it's due to the child, only the blood that she saw from Rosh Chodesh, because it's only that month that counts. That means to say that it's coming because of the labor pains. She'ein ba al yadei al yadu leziva. Those times we say it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen through ziva. Im lo rasa gimel yamim ritzufim konam Rosh Chodesh, unless she's 3 straight days before Rosh Chodesh. But if she sees 3 straight days before Rosh Chodesh, so then we're going to say that it's because of the ziva. Dekasavar Rabbi Yehuda shipura garim shofar shebezdin tokim lekidush gor makisha, means to say shipura, the shofar, meaning to say Rosh Chodesh, is what causes it. It has to be the actual 9th month. So if it's within the 9th month, we could say it's because of the labor pains. means. Otherwise, it's ziva. And Rashi points out sometimes the whole month is going to be purified. Let's say she gives birth at the end of the 9th month. And so then in that case, and Rashi just points out the purity that we're saying when she's tar is only from ziva. She's in the situation where we determine it's because of the baby, she doesn't have tumas ziva. But she would not be purified from tumas nida, be may nida, let's say it was during the days where she's expecting nida. And Rashi also points out, let's say the pain goes away for a day or so before the birth, af mi ziva lo tara, so then she can't be pure from ziva either, because then we see the fact that the pain goes away a little shows it wasn't because of the birth. Then we do assume it's yoledis bezov. She needs zayin nikim. Because if the pain stops, then it's clear that the original pain was not because of the child. So again, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say that the protracted labor is 2 weeks. And again, that's what we're saying. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. And the Gemara continues, Kiddush. What does it mean that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi by Kiddush? That's talking about Kilayim, the Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah in Kilayim. Let's say somebody takes his gef and his vine and he runs it over the grain of his friend. He creates a situation of Kilayim. So Hareza Kiddush, so he sanctified it, and he has chayiv to pay. He's responsible because now he's caused a loss of money to his friend. Rashi over here says Kiddush Lashon Pentukdash Osar Tevuas Chaver. It's a language of forbidding. He forbids the grain of his friend. He creates a situation of Kilayim. V'chayiv l'shalim, and his chayiv to pay. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Omrim, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say, and again, that's the Rabbi Yossi that we're going to be paskening like. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Beis.